This little midge pattern crushes when they're eating midges off the top.
Fly, fish, food.
This is a size 24 Tmco 101 hook. Tmco, in my opinion, kind of raises the game when it comes to their really, really small hooks. I've had a lot of success with these hooks over the years, so that's why we keep using them. Anyway, this is a pretty basic midge pattern that can be fished as a dry fly or an emerger. But first things first, we're just going to dress this with some thread. Regular 70 denier thread is fine for a size 24. Just be really careful with your thread wrap so it doesn't bulk up the body too much. So on one of our local tailwaters, we noticed that a lot of the midges had kind of an orangish looking shuck to them when they were kind of sitting on the surface trying to fully hatch. And so tied up some midges with orange shucks, and they worked really well. For the shuck on this one, I'm just going to use some burnt orange Antron. Okay, so I'm just going to wrap that back and kind of build up a little bit of a body, and I'll trim that shuck off equal to the length of the body roughly, and then I'm going to flatten out my thread by spinning it counterclockwise. And then when I'm in the back of the midge, I'm going to take my thread and cord it up by spinning my thread clockwise, and just take a black Sharpie and color about 1 inch to 2 inches worth of thread, and this will become the rib. So once I get to the point where I want to start tying more materials in, I'm going to unwind my thread again, because if it's too tight it will break. Okay, so this is just going to have a little bit of CDC going out the front of the fly. So I've got just a gray CDC fiber or feather. You can use any of the grays or duns that you want. I'm going to tie this in a little bit longer than I want on purpose, and then I'll just pull it to length about right there. It doesn't take a whole lot of CDC to float this fly. And then I'll wrap back just a few turns of thread so that I can build up a tiny little thorax. And I'll use dubbing for the thorax, just a tiny bit of dub. That will actually hold floatant as well, a little bit better than just a thread thorax, even though it's just a tiny little bit. Okay, so we've got a little tiny thorax built up, and now I'll take the other piece of CDC and pull it over the top and catch that down. And this is the toughest part, is pulling all those fibers up. Hopefully my fat fingers will show you. And advancing your thread forward, and now whip finishing. So I'm going to start the whip finish, grab it with my fingers, just make a couple turn whip finish, and we're good to go. Now for this piece of CDC, I'm not going to cut it flush. I'm going to cut it about half as long as the other piece so that it creates a little bit of base. So there's quite a bit of CDC in there, and as you can see the stem's poking up. If you want, you can get in here. You know what? I can't even see the stem right now. Got it. So you can pop the stem out of there. But anyway, if you keep that dry and treated, that's going to float really well and catch a lot of fish that are feeding on midges that are just kind of hanging in the surface.